Welcome back, my friends, to the show that, well, it ends, but eventually, but not yet. We're just getting started. It's week 13. It's the Bob and Emil show, footballdiehards.com. I am Bob Harris, senior editor of footballdiehards.com. That's Emil Kadlec, the publisher and chief honcho here at footballdiehards.com. How are you, Emil?
Another wonderful week, and it's Friday. It goes fast, doesn't it?
Man, faster. I mean, this has been a hectic week. Tons of news. If you haven't been hitting the footballdiehards.com website, you should. Tons of news up there. Some of it we're going to touch on quickly here before we get into a little strength of schedule talk for the playoff run, which I'm always enthusiastic and interested in. But first, some not great news. We'll start out with Kareem Hunt, the Kansas City Chiefs running back, was sent home by the Chiefs today. A video emerged, released by TMZ Sports, from a February incident in which Kareem Hunt got in an altercation with a woman. There was a group of people. Clearly, he had an issue with he and this woman were in an intense argument. There was a lot of pushing and shoving. At one point, his friends were able to get him back, but he kind of got away from them, ran into one of his friends who ran into the woman. Everyone went to the floor except Kareem Hunt. At some point, he kicked the woman. Police came. They interviewed both parties. No charges were pressed at the time. The Chiefs and the NFL were aware of this situation. You may have heard about it back in August. It was talk about it. But the story today is nobody saw the video. The NFL says they haven't seen the video. The Chiefs say they haven't seen the video. Again, he was sent home today. The Associated Press, Dave Scretta, is reporting that the league is beginning an investigation. It's happening as we speak. But Dave Scretta is reporting that the league that he's heading for the commissioner exempt list, which is where you go when you're like Adrian Peterson. That's what kept him out a year. It's like paid leave essentially, and it leaves it gives everyone a chance to figure out what's going on. Look, it's not too hard to figure out what's going on here, right? There was a fight. It's a bad look. And expect Spencer Ware to start against the Oakland Raiders this week. And don't expect, I think the default position should be don't expect Kareem Hunt to be back this season. And I think that's just a fair default situation. We're not sitting here. We're not in a position to pass judgment on the people. You can all decide what you want about the act. We all know what we've decided, and it's a horrible thing. Nobody likes to see this. And we'll go forward from there. It's the Oakland Raiders against the Kansas City Chiefs going into a great matchup. So Spencer Ware seems like a plug-and-play option to me, Emil. Is that basically how you would feel about it?
Oh, absolutely. It's I wouldn't cut Kareem Hunt unless you had some serious roster limits. I would keep him on just in case, at least for another week or days until we find out more. But certainly Spencer Ware is a guy you could plug in and you should probably get some pretty, he's not going to go crazy. He could go crazy, but he's certainly a great situation for you.
Kareem Hunt was drafted to be Spencer Ware's backup, and then Spencer Ware got hurt. And Spencer Ware was a guy the Chiefs had great faith in. So I think in terms of role, and here it is. It is now official. Adam Schefter is reporting as we speak that he is being placed on the commissioner's exempt list. So that would be the expected, and that means he can be, kept out of playing for as long as they deem it necessary to keep him from playing. So we'll go from there. I do think Spencer Ware, I know I've been tweaking the rankings a little bit. I've moved him up into the high-end running back 2 category. And some of that is the guys ahead of him have, there's some great matchups this week. So, but plug-and-play kind of option to me, which is what you want from a true handcuff. I think he is that. He's a true handcuff. Will come in and assume that same role, both as a runner and receiver. I don't know that they'll chop it up that much. So there you have that. And some other news of Melvin Gordon won't play this week. Another top running back, Austin Eckler, will start in his place. And I guess for me, the last time we saw this happen was in London against, I guess it was the Titans. It wasn't great, right? It was like 12 carries, 40 yards. I think Austin Eckler gives you a good PPR floor. He's a good receiver. Justin Jackson there, a rookie running back, is in the mix and maybe can add a little something. But I think the default is you play Eckler. If you have him, this is what you have him for, right?
Yeah. It wasn't great in England, but I do think the guy can do well. And obviously it depends on who you have on your roster, but he'd be a good guy if you're hurting a little bit, which most of us are. So if all of a sudden you got an instant starter that hopefully will give you at least running back 2 numbers.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. I think, we're all like hoping for, guys to come out of nowhere. So, Justin Jackson is a guy we'd all be interested in if he could get some of that role. Melvin Gordon could be out. It could be a multiple game absence for him. 2 to 3 weeks would not be a huge surprise, especially with the Chargers playing pretty successfully. Turns out they have a really good quarterback, this guy Phillip Rivers.
Yeah, who is he?
Completes almost every pass that he throws. So,
well, they're playing at Pittsburgh this week, which doesn't help. But you never know. I've always feared Pittsburgh at home.
Right. Well, I fear their offense more than their defense at home, but this should be I like that. We love that as fantasy owners. It was like the Thursday night game. We weren't hoping for a defensive battle, and we never are because we're fantasy goers. One other little newsy tidbit is AJ Green returns this week to the lineup after a 3-week absence, I guess it is, or 2 games and 1 bye. Anyway, a lengthy absence to come back and maybe open things up for Tyler Boyd. The problem is the quarterback, maybe. Jeff Driscoll, kind of an unknown. Interesting that all his teammates think he's the most athletic guy on the team. I talked to Jeremy Rao from Fox TV in Cincinnati about an hour ago and asked him if the legend, Jeff Driscoll, legit, AJ Green said he's the best athlete on the team. Joe Mixon says he's the fastest guy on the roster, not named John Ross. And John Ross is a legit 4.2 guy, 4.2 40 guy. So Jeff Driscoll, very athletic. They've kept him around 3 years, for a reason. One of the things that you saw when he came in against the Saints and garbage time was a little bit of RPO, the run pass option, free pass. So maybe they get a little something different. Joe Mixon's going to be very busy in this one. How do you feel about a guy coming back like AJ Green in this situation? I mean, can you play him like the guy you wanted him, or you drafted him to be, or do you roll a little easy on him?
I think you roll easy on him. I don't know if he's that healthy. I think it helps Boyd. They are at home. Yeah. They're against Denver, but I think it helps Boyd if he can do anything, take a little load off a little pass coverage off of Boyd. And I think that's a nice thing. If you're desperate to play somebody, at least they're at home. But
the best news here is the Denver offense gets to go against Cincinnati's defense, because the best news every week is whoever's going up against the Cincy defense. Another one that's kind of intriguing to me, and we'll see how it plays out. I would assume Lamar Jackson is going to start against the Falcons. Not good at stopping the run or running backs, in particular the Falcons. Gus Edwards listed as questionable. It's one to watch. I expect him to play. Alex Collins also questionable. But Lamar Jackson gets another start. Pretty dangerous rushing attack. Are you playing Lamar Jackson for that high floor he gives you with that rushing attack?
I don't know how. It is a semi-high floor because, he didn't really do a lot last week, and I was kind of looking at it at a glance, and then you noticed, oh, wait a minute, plus 70 yards rushing and a rushing touchdown. Oh, now he's at 22 or 23. It's like, right. Especially in, maybe DFS too, you're probably getting him cheap. Hopefully he hasn't gone up too much.
No, especially if if they add a little throwing component, which we saw a little uptick last week. We'll see if that happens again, but I do think that's the thing. You get a good floor with him.
They're in Atlanta, so they're on the road, but obviously it's nice weather in Atlanta in a dome, and you're playing a team that gives up a lot of points. So, he could be a guy who helps you out.
And you have a great defense, and in particular, I think that's of interest to me for the Ravens. Gives them a little bit of a leeway, I think, in what they do with their offense. But as far as Joe Flacco, he's back to practice this week. He said it would take about a week for him to get back up, and get past this hip issue. And if they're still winning, it will take him more than a week.
Yeah, that'll be interesting.
Yeah, and that's basically what John Harbaugh said. Well, it'll get interesting.
Did he really?
Basically, yes. So anyhow, so we wanted to talk some strength of schedule in this one because we are heading into the playoff stretch, and I think that's always important to kind of get a feel for who has great schedules and who has not so great schedules. And in terms of passing schedules, I think it is most interesting some of the teams that are in the bottom of the passing schedule, the hardest, the most difficult, and by who interesting is the Colts, Jets, Titans, Patriots, Dolphins, Lions, and Redskins from 26 to 32. They have the hardest schedules going forward, in terms of passing. And I guess that's the thing that jumps out at me is Andrew Luck and the Colts. When you look at the teams they're facing, Jacksonville, Houston, Dallas, the New York Giants. We saw what the Dallas Cowboys can do on Thursday night against the Saints. They can shut a guy down. Jacksonville as well. That's this weekend. Maybe with or without Jalen Ramsey, we'll see. I think the Jacksonville matchup is one that they can get past. Jacksonville, not the team we expect them to be. Still a good defense, right? But they have they have some miscommunications at times and some issues at times. So I don't think I'm backing off Andrew Luck just yet, but I do think it's interesting. How much would you dial back? Is he matchup proof to you, Andrew Luck?
Well, I almost think he is. Of course, it all depends on what's in your roster. If you got another guy you can stream to, it's going to be, this week is week 13. He's going at Jacksonville. Maybe that isn't as important. Of course, that gets you into the playoffs because most playoffs start 13 or 14,
right.
15. It all depends. At Houston in week 14, that's kind of a problem. Dallas and the Giants aren't so bad. So I think he's proof, but it's going to be hard to not start him even in week 14 when he's playing Houston, depending on who else you have, because he's done so well lately. And he's kind of matchup proof, but it's always worrisome. Sometimes you got to go with your guy.
Yeah, I think for me that would be matchup proof. I mean, the Jets, look, I can dial back on that, no problem. We already are. Tom Brady, an interesting character. There's an update up on the site from Thursday talking about is he a legit, quarterback one. We don't rank him like that, Emil, this week. We rank him, I think, around 15, quarterback 15 in a tough matchup. It hasn't been great, right?
No, he's Brady. He's had a slight tendency in the last few years to have a lower second half of the season. I don't know whether that's matchup or they're running more at that time, but he's a little concerning.
I think they are running a little more. I think this is historically a thing where he has not been great down the stretch. I do think it's a Patriots thing. They do kind of dial it back and pin their ears back a little bit as they get into the colder weather, and I think that adds to the issues we're already seeing. You mentioned also in the bottom of this group, the Titans, Marcus Mariota. Look, we're encouraged by what we've seen, but I don't think anyone's got him locked in as a starter. Matthew Stafford, a guy maybe we drafted late, hoping we could get something out of. The hope is not coming to fruition. I mean, and maybe, it's kind of
well, you traded Tate and Marvin Jones is hurt. They haven't really replaced the tight end.
Right. There are issues this week in particular. I mean, it's the Kenny Golladay and Theo Riddick show. Michael Roberts is listed as doubtful. Bruce Ellington is questionable. Brandon Powell has been ruled out. I mean, all the bodies are going by the wayside, and it's again going against the Rams. Not their tough matchup, but they need to play keep up, and I don't know that they have the weapons to do that. Their schedule gets much tougher after that with Arizona, Buffalo, and Minnesota in the all-important Week 16. So interesting. I think the thing that gets me is the teams with the best, most favorable passing schedules, at least some of them, it's a mixed bag. There's like three that you kind of 50-50 on. There's two that you're very excited about. Let's start with those. The New Orleans Saints, they've gotten past the Dallas Cowboys. Going ahead, they have Tampa Bay, Carolina, and Pittsburgh. Tampa Bay, we know the wreck that they've been in terms of passing. Carolina, the last 3 weeks, the losing streak, their defense has fallen off. The wheels have come off. They've given up multiple TD games to receivers in 3 of the last 4 games. That's pretty interesting run for the Saints. Looking beyond the obvious, Drew Brees, Michael Thomas, of course you're playing them, Alvin Kamara. We've got Traquan Smith. We've got Austin Carr. And suddenly we have Keith Kirkwood establishing himself as a scoring threat. Dan Arnold also, the tight end, has been heavily targeted. Can you trust anyone? I mean, look, we want to get pieces in with this favorable schedule. Are there pieces you can trust, or are these guys just, flyers more for daily than for season long?
I think they're kind of daily tournament guys almost. It's so hard right now. What did Traquan Smith do? Was he out? I don't remember on Thursday.
He played last night, and it was not impressive.
He's had
one drop. One drop.
Yeah, he's had about the highest highs and the lowest floors. because he had 2 huge games. I don't know what you can do. That's the frustrating thing about this is you're looking down at Kirkwood's kind of curious, but what is he getting? 2 targets and he scores a touchdown. Well, that sounds sounds like it's hard to play that guy, in your playoffs. Unless you're just desperate as can be. I put Kamara in here basically because it helps him a little bit, with a weak passing defense.
That's what got you that's what kept his floor high in the game Thursday night against Dallas was he caught 8 passes. I mean, the rushing day was nothing to write home about. 11 carries, 36
PPR wise, he had a bad game, but a good game. Right. And even Benjamin Watson's had some nice games, but even lately he hasn't done much. So I think you're stuck here with your season long. You want to get something out of this, if you're other than Michael Thomas and the Drew Brees, but I'm not sure what you can get out of them.
I think, they're just spot plays to me. I think it's very difficult to play them, which brings us to maybe a team that's a little easier to deal with, which is the Vikings. So we've got going forward, we've got New England this week, Sunday, which is a favorable matchup. We have Detroit in week 16, a very favorable matchup. I think that's fantastic. And this is a team where you can play all these guys, Adam Thielen, Stephon Diggs, Kyle Rudolph. I think Dalvin Cook will be a factor as well. Got a couple of neutral matchups, basically Seattle and Miami in between those two. But that Week 16 matchup against the Lions looks quite sweet. No reason to believe any of these guys are going to slow down for that, right?
No, and Rudolph's been kind of a disappointment, but just he seems to be getting a little bit more situation. So a lot of leagues he may be a free agent, and you'll be able to stream him if it fits right with whomever you have. So he may be a help here for you.
So we said it was kind of a 50-50. I think if the Broncos are on the edge of that case, Keenum playing better, the interceptions have dialed back. Emmanuel Sanders has been a must-play every week. They've got Cincinnati this week, obviously, as good a matchup as you're going to get, followed by San Francisco, another favorable matchup, Cleveland and Oakland. I think you could do a lot worse. Guys like Phillip Lindsay are going to be in your lineups. But I think Emmanuel Sanders locked in. I think Cortland Sutton's a guy, though, that you'll be wanting to continue playing these. And we've got Matt Lacoste, the new tight end, Jeff Hireman out. Does the tight end get enough business there in Denver just as a position to make him of interest to you?
When they dumped Thomas, Demaryius Thomas, all of a sudden, Herman, or however you pronounce his name, Hireman, just all of a sudden he jumped out. They started using that tight end. I think Sutton's still, growing. And look, what did Lacoste get? I think he scored a touchdown last week, didn't he?
Yeah, he did last week. So
I think it's another one of those things where you need a streaming tight end. I don't know
and
if
we all do.
Yeah, I mean, it's an opportunity, depending on your league and whatnot. That guy may help you out for one of these games. And be nice to see one more game. Of course, that one more game's against Cincinnati. So
and it's going to be, it's probably going to skew in his favor. I'm guessing this whole game will skew in their favor. I think, the other teams, the Browns, I think they're kind of a borderline as well as the Broncos. Baker Mayfield's playing better. I think it gets super favorable down the stretch. Got to get past Houston this week. But beyond that, Carolina, at Denver, Cincinnati week 16 in a bit of a narrative game. Apparently, Baker Mayfield not a fan of his former head coach, Hugh Jackson, now coaching for the Cincinnati Bengals, an assistant. We all saw what happened in the last game. It was very entertaining, and saw what happened afterwards, and that was equally entertaining. So Baker Mayfield's the guy. Is he inching up into startable category, or does he just remain on the streaming radar?
I think some of these games, I think he's a starter. Houston's a bit of a problem, but maybe your playoffs don't start in week 13 anyway. But
Cincinnati week 16 looks pretty damn appealing.
Yeah, they're home against Carolina. They're on a road against Denver. That's a little different, even though Denver's been giving up some stuff. Again, here's a guy who you may be able to stream. You got 3 good options in the playoffs. If you've got only one guy and maybe there's an injury, he's a guy you can put, Mayfield's a guy you can put on your roster who's most likely available in leagues. And maybe your guy gets hurt, or, Baker Mayfield has a great week 13 and 14 and you decide you you want to play him in 15 or 16 against Cincinnati against Week 16.
Which of his receivers do you like? Is Jarvis Landry kind of turned into, I mean, is there any reason to believe he's going to turn around? It's been slow, right? Is there any reason to believe this is going to turn around? Is Antonio Callaway a better player, or David Njoku better plays? Both have been Jarvis Landry?
It's really frustrating, and I think you're going to have to sit down and look at the stats the last few weeks. And Njoku's had some bad games and had some good games. You know, and unfortunately, Landry just hasn't put the big numbers up that we've hoped he's had. He could explode here. That's the one problem with this situation. Great matchups, Baker Mayfield playing better, but who's going to get the sugar for the next 4 weeks is really hard to tell. And so you're going to have to take a stab at it. Now, just a dynasty thing in general, looking at this, if Callaway's had some up and downs, and he may be available in your league, or you could trade for him, because next year this guy's got a lot of talent. And he hasn't done a ton yet, so he's a guy you may want to get in a dynasty league, looking in that direction.
Right. I think that's one of the things that, for me, this offense is running through the running backs. Right. Since Freddie Kitchen has taken over as offensive coordinator, it doesn't keep Baker Mayfield from throwing touchdowns. They're kind of spotty, but he's getting them done. But I think Chubb and Duke Johnson are the plays for me. Chubb primarily. Yeah. I think everyone else is kind of an outlier, even with favorable schedules. Buffalo Bills, number 2 on the favorable schedule list. Is my guy Robert Foster going to continue his role? The suddenly unstoppable Robert Foster. I did think it was interesting. Last 2 games, he's out snapping Kelvin Benjamin last week. The prior game, he's got a 105-yard game and a 94-yard game. Big play specialist. Stayed in Buffalo during the bye week to work with Josh Allen as he worked his way back from the elbow injury. I thought that was interesting and a good move on his part. I don't know if any of these receivers beyond that are playable. I don't know if Robert Foster is playable. Maybe just, sometimes when you look at these offenses, the quarterback is the guy, right? In this case, I mean, if you wanted this, you're not going to get a reliable piece of the ancillary parts. If you want to take advantage of a New England matchup in Week 16, a Detroit matchup in Week 15, you're going to have to play Josh Allen. Nobody's going to do that, right?
Yeah, you got to be in a particularly tough situation. Now he's been running the ball too, ironically,
right?
which is helping him. I think I'd be tempted to pick up Robert Foster if I had room, just to have him as kind of a desperate play over the next few weeks if something goes wrong with your other players. The targets really aren't there. He gets 4 targets and he catches 2 balls for. Yeah, he could easily be shut out, and that floor is a little bit of a concern. But there it is, and there's a schedule, and sometimes picking a guy like that up and get him on your roster who may be able to have a big game, and all of a sudden you have a situation in the playoffs where somebody went down and you've got that guy, and it may help you. We're looking at, obviously these aren't absolutes, so these guys would be already on rosters, but you're trying to find these guys. And he's an interesting guy, but you're right. It would be a risky situation, even Josh Allen. But these are guys that are going to have chances to play against weaker competition and play well. And have a chance to score some fantasy points.
I think you look at these guys as DFS options for me. I mean, it's hard to, I don't see the level of reliability I want, season-long guys. But I do think there's something, if you read this week's through DFS 3-and-out column by me, the tournament DFS column, Foster is one of my guys on there, and for the very reason he's a big play threat, dirt cheap, and I like cheap. I'm like that. So I like that. The other team in the top 6 that interests me is the Arizona Cardinals. Again, team that's not faring especially well, and a kind of a tough defense. So I think ideally they want to run with David Johnson. They want to keep it there. Josh Rosen throws enough touchdowns to keep it interesting, right? For guys like Larry Fitzgerald, I think Christian Kirk as well. It's hard for me to buy into Ricky Seals-Jones. I think he's been getting out-snapped the last few weeks, if I'm not mistaken, by Jermaine Gresham anyhow. So he's kind of sliding down. But Larry Fitzgerald, has touchdowns in 5 games now?
Yep.
I think 5 touchdowns in the last 5 games. So not one every week, but I think he's, it's been pretty good on him. Do you trust that level of production or are they more like DFS plays?
Well, I think David Johnson, I think you got to trust him. I think he's been really well. I put, Christian Kirk he's close. He is close. He's getting some targets, but again, I think you're right. It's more of a DFS thing, but they've got a good schedule. Detroit, at Atlanta, Los Angeles Rams. I don't know if they've been getting. I would not want to play against them right now, but there's 2 weeks there that are pretty good, week 14 and 15. You just got to decide whether you need a Christian Kirk or not, or a Rosen would be really scary if you had to. But there they are, and they're. I'm looking at Rosen. He doesn't have some great points here recently. But
yeah, I'm not. I haven't been afraid to use Rosen as a ultra cheap DFS tournament play. Again, differentiate. Not a lot of people. Not going to be highly owned. Capable of those 3 touchdown games. And looking at the schedule, I may look at that a little bit going forward and try and leverage that in my favor. You're right, though. David Johnson is a guy you're playing every week, a season long. That's not going to change. Larry Fitzgerald, I think, is still playable. I think Christian Kirk is playable as a wide receiver 3 or flex level wide receiver. Yeah. I think the production has been consistent enough. And the schedule makes that a little more appealing still. I want to look at the rushing matchups we have here. The bottom of the list, the hardest rushing matchups over the rest of the season. Well, and rest of the season, we're going through week 16 for the purposes of this conversation. I should have stipulated that right from the get-go. Because if you're playing in week 17,
I'm confused.
You're not going to be happy. You're not going to be happy. So of all these teams, not a lot of, prime, offenses, but some prime backs. So we have the Saints at number 27, the Colts at 28, 49ers at 29. Giants have the number 30. It's a very hard schedule. The Eagles and the Buccaneers. Look, the Eagles, it's hard to play a running back. Buccaneers, I'm not playing Peyton Manning going up against Carolina, New Orleans, Baltimore, and Dallas down the stretch. And I probably wasn't playing him anyhow. Eagles, you figure it out. It seems like Josh Adams is getting some run, but as he closes out the season against the Raiders, or the Rams, a reasonably easy matchup, but then they close out against Houston. I just think the workload's hard to trust. That's not the case for Saquon Barkley, who unfortunately, they'll face Chicago this week. They'll face the Washington Redskins, a pretty tough defense in general, have been tough at times against the run, especially tough. Tennessee, tough defense. And closing out in Indianapolis, Darius Leonard, all by himself, can be a tough matchup at times. So interesting there. You're not benching Saquon Barkley.
No.
I don't know if you're benching Matt Breida going up against Seattle, Denver, Seattle again, and Chicago down the stretch. Week 17 against Chicago is going to be tough if you're playing San Francisco 49ers. Colts, I'm not shoehorning any of these running backs into the lineups. I want to play Marlon Mack when I can. But, you live without him more than you've lived with him this season, basically. So I think we can all figure that one out. I think he will play this week. Should be cleared from the concussion list as questionable. Jacksonville defense, a tough matchup all across the board. Houston, Dallas, and then closing out against the Giants. The Saints at number 27. I don't know if you back off Alvin Kamara because of a matchup. I don't think so. I don't know if you back off Mark Ingram because of the matchup. You worry about the role more with him, right?
Yeah, and I think, if you go back to the passing, the Saints have the 3rd easiest schedule passing, and then so Kamara is still available there to catch the ball, which he did last night. And
it works.
So he's a guy you don't, and even Saquon Barkley has caught like 9 catches. So even if they have a tough run defense, they're going to throw the ball to him. So you got to start those guys.
Throwing this out here right now at the day after they've been shut down by a tough defense is probably not the best look in the world. But, from a fantasy perspective, I think you view the Saints as matchups, whether they are or not. Obviously, they are not. But I think you view them and play them that way. But you play them that way in terms of Drew Brees, Alvin Kamara, and Mark Ingram, whether it's a flex level running back or an RB2 or a low-end RB2 if you're in a pinch. I think, I don't think anything changes there. The easy matchups, here's some intrigue. For me, I think I like this because there's some great guys. The easiest slate ahead is for the Denver Broncos, not the least of which because they play Cincinnati this week, San Francisco, followed by Cleveland, and then closing out against Oakland in Oakland. Oakland, I think, right now ranks like 31st in the league against the run. I think Cincinnati 32nd in the league. San Francisco they're tougher against the run than they are the pass. I think that is interesting. But Philip Lindsay contributes as a receiver as well, on track to have the most yards of any undrafted free agent, averaging 7.5 yards a touch. He's been phenomenal. Royce Freeman, though, not faring as well, not getting as much work. Is Freeman still on the flex radar for you, given the schedule?
My first thought is no. But again, it all depends on the desperate situation you got. What did he do last week? Boy, he didn't do much last week. I would try and stay away from him unless I had to.
I think he's a touchdown threat. I think the matchups here make him a little more interesting, but the circumstances have to be right. I think you're right. You have to be in a situation where you're in a little bit of a pinch. Look, it's week 13 on, and you may well be in a pinch, and maybe in standard leagues, his flex play, he's reasonable. But I think the schedule, if you are put in a position to play Royce Freeman going forward, the schedule at least makes that a little easier. Philip Lindsay, though, all in. You got to be, especially this week. Again, if you read my DFS 3 and out, he's on that one. He is very recently priced in the daily games this week, so don't overlook that. I know Bobby Gomes loves Christian McCaffrey. The Panthers have the second easiest schedule against the run going forward, starting with Tampa Bay, followed by Cleveland. New Orleans, a very tough matchup against the run, but then close out against Atlanta, who cannot stop a receiving running back to save their lives dating back 3 years. So Christian McCaffrey owners heading into Week 16 championship games are going to be very happy. Cam Newton owners, he can run as well. Yep. You're going to be very happy there. This doesn't benefit anyone. Those are the two guys that are the only beneficiaries. So.
I don't see anything else happening. Yeah,
but I do think get that Week 16 on your radar. I know Norv Turner has it on his. He's been making great use. Talked to David Newton from ESPN yesterday, who covers the Panthers on a daily basis, and we talked about that. We all remember what they were talking about, right? 400 touches or something like that, and we were all laughing. And Norv Turner. We also laughed that Norv Turner was going to make Cam Newton a more accurate passer. Oh wait, he has. everything Norv is touching here is turning to gold, including Chris McCaffrey. So get that on your radar. But I think the more interesting team, because there are multiple options and maybe another one coming in, the Texans go up against Cleveland, Indianapolis, the New York Jets, and Philadelphia. Philadelphia Week 16 is a tougher matchup, but in general they have a pretty clear path. Lamar Miller's been making plays. He's been better than we think. Unless you've been watching, you're not sure how good he is. That 97-yard run notwithstanding, he's been playing reasonably well. But we have to worry a little bit about Deontay Foreman returning. Is that a concern for you if you're a Lamar Miller owner?
Reading your updates the last week or two, I don't think it is. I think perhaps if you got room and your Miller's your guy, maybe you pick Foreman up just because. But I don't think it's going to be an issue, and I think it's still going to take him some time. And Lamar's playing so well, I don't think you'd bring him in there except maybe just for a few plays, just in case, just to get him going.
But I think that's the key for Lamar Miller is not overusing him. They've been mixing in some Alfred Blue. I look at the touch totals. I mean, remember in Miami when he would have those games and we would all wonder, why doesn't Joe Philbin use him like a real feature back?
Yeah.
Here's why. Because he's better when you don't, right? We've seen him like last year, even as recently, when it's a little disappointing. Well, it was a heavy workload. He's just not built for the heavy workload. I think sometimes we need to. Oh man, news coming in: the Chiefs are releasing Kareem Hunt.
Whoa!
So Kareem Hunt is no longer employed by an NFL football team.
That's just crazy. Cut him now. You can cut him now.
Things do move fast.
That's NFL. Just wild. I guess that film said a lot. I have not seen it yet.
Yeah, it is. It is not good. And so there you have it. So Spencer Ware is the running back of record for the Kansas City Chiefs going forward. And so we'll work on that here in the next few days.
Who's the backup?
Spencer Ware is the main guy. The backup behind Spencer Ware, I'll have to. I don't know. It's Damian Williams. They have two guys. I think it's Damian Williams is one, and I believe, who is it from
Let me go
Arizona?
look real quick.
I got it right here. Damian Williams, and another more like a receiving back.
Anthony Sherman is on the team.
Right, he's a fullback. Did they get rid of the other guy? They're using a former Cardinal they had on there. Yeah, they did. So they have Damian Williams, basically the former Miami Dolphins, kind of a receiving back. They have Darrell Williams, so a free agent. So there you have that. That's exciting news.
Wow.
As we
Wow.
Did not take long for that one to hit to get it to that move fast. So
yeah, that's very fast.
All right, so let's get back to these matchups and finish that out. So the Bengals have the fourth easiest schedule going forward for rushing teams. Joe Mixon, Giovanni Bernard. Look, Joe Mixon sounds like a guy who wants to finish the season strong. If you go to the site right now and read my latest update, he is ready and raring to go. Final two games against Oakland and Cleveland, both great matchups. I think we're playing him. Gio Bernard, it's hard to play him right now, right? I mean, there's just not enough there.
If Mixon's healthy, I don't see he's going to do much. And, of course, your new quarterback, what is it, Driscoll or?
Yeah, Jeff Driscoll.
You know, and again, first off, dynasty-wise, you should already have him on your roster. Because you never know. And I'm in one main dynasty league, and I think about a player, and he's already picked up. It's a 14-man league with a 20 roster deep, and he's probably already gone. I haven't even tried. But these are the dynasty situations where you want to get those guys on your roster. But you never know. He maybe against Oakland or even he may be valuable against Oakland in week 15 if you're really hurting for a quarterback.
I had the 5th easiest schedule going forward. Aaron Jones locked in, running back one down the stretch, I'm guessing, for you, Emil, going against the Cardinals, the Falcons. The Bears are the hardest matchup there, week 15. Closing out against the Jets, kind of a neutral matchup. But this guy's been getting it done. When they give him enough work, that's the question. Will he get enough work?
I think so. I really think he will. It's that Chicago game scary in week 15. Maybe you can find somebody else for that start. But he's really proven himself. I think he'll get it. What do you think?
I do think, I love him. I liked him since he came back from the suspension. I've liked him more than Mike McCarthy has. Now Mike McCarthy is starting to like him as much as me.
The problem you got is Cobb's been hurt.
Yep.
Geronimo's out. You got two pretty nice rookie receivers, but they're still rookie receivers. They're still learning. They're still making mistakes. So, maybe running the ball a little bit more is helping out the offense and helping out Aaron Rodgers. And that's kind of what they've been doing, pretty much the last few weeks.
Right. And then the 6th easiest schedule is going to be impossible to use. We've got the Detroit Lions going up against the Rams, the Cardinals, the Buffalo Bills, and closing out against Minnesota the final week. The problem is deciding who's going to get the job. Kerryon Johnson is going to be fine once he's back, but we don't know when he's going to be back. Is LeGarrette Blount's workload enough to trust him on until Johnson returns? Is he a guy you can play? I mean, the touchdowns might happen, but is the workload, you feel comfortable enough with the workload?
No, I don't. Again, it's another one of those scenarios if you really need a guy. I don't like Buffalo at Buffalo. Every once in a while, those guys really play up there.
Right?
Of course, the weather makes
the matchup says it's easy, but I don't know that it is. It worries me.
It's statistics. Those are statistics, and they've had some bad games.
And it's at Buffalo where there's probably going to be a lake effect snowstorm or something horrible. I don't know.
That's a tough one. If Kerryon comes back real quick and you can play him against Arizona, maybe at least that's going to be good weather there. And they're road games, and I don't know about Minnesota. So that's a real problem scenario right there as far as, like you said, being able to use some of the schedule is going to be hard to do. It's going to be risky.
All right, well, there we have that. So if you want to hit the website, go to the resource tab at the top of the page. Hit EOS, Ease of Schedule. You can see what's going on for every team down the stretch, color-coded in a way that you can use them, figure things out at a glance, and also with just the rankings for all the defenses at the bottom of the page. So check that out. Also check out all the usual assortment of goodies here, whether it's the podcast with Armando and Bobby Gomes, the live videos with Armando and Bobby, also heading into each game. You can see all the columns there, worked by myself, Armando Marsal, John Lau, Bobby Gomes, J.J. Buck, Gary Davenport, Matthew Sharon, Evan Tarciano, and Jen Ryan, of course, shows up each week with the DFS season-long Vegas Excel file. I keep that open on my desktop all week long. There's nothing like it. Tons of great information in there, very useful. So get on board all that. Of course, I will have live news updates going up. In fact, momentarily, I will be writing the Kareem Hunt was released by the
no longer in the NFL. Wow.
One of the best backs in the NFL is no longer in the NFL. That's how fast things can change. Spencer Ware is the guy that will take over. You can hear me every night on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio, 6 to 8 p.m. With Mike Dempsey. You can hear me on Saturday night with Mike Dempsey on SiriusXM NFL Radio from 8 to 11. Sunday mornings on SiriusXM Fantasy pregame show with Jeff Mans. Again, be on the radio, but be watching the site with Bobby and Armando doing the live video, taking your questions too, by the way, which is a great thing. Lots of interaction there, and that's what we want you to get in on. So we appreciate you coming in. Emil, thank you. I'm Bob Harris. He's Emil Kadlec. We're signing off for this week.
Wonderful. Looking forward to Sunday.
Oh, yeah.
All right.